The Ruins of Sevastopol, 1942. For 3 days there had been nothing, just silence, the patient, agonizing stillness of the hunt. Hidden in a pile of rubble, a Red Army sniper lay motionless, her eyes burning from the strain of staring through her scope. Her target was out there, somewhere in the mirror image of her own desolation, a German sniper, one of their best, a man who had already killed 2 of her comrades. This was not a battle of armies. It was a personal duel, a contest of will, patience, and lethal geometry fought over hundreds of meters of no man's land. Her opponent was good. He was a master of camouflage, a ghost who had remained invisible for 72 hours. But then, a flicker of movement. A German soldier foolishly raising his head for a moment, and behind him a glint of sunlight off a rifle scope, carelessly exposed for a fraction of a second. She had him. She exhaled, her heartbeat the only sound in her world. The crosshairs settled. She squeezed the trigger. The sniper who fired that shot was not a hardened veteran from the Siberian wilderness. She was a 25-year-old history student from Kiev. By the time a mortar wound would end her combat career, she would have 309 confirmed kills, including 36 enemy snipers, making her the most successful and most feared female sniper in human history. This is the story of the woman the Germans came to call Lady Death. This is the story of Lyudmila Pavlichenko. Lyudmila Pavlichenko's journey to becoming a deadly hunter began not in the army, but in the quiet halls of Kiev University. Born in a small Ukrainian town in 1916, she was a bright, fiercely independent and competitive young woman. While studying to become a history teacher, she discovered a passion for sharpshooting, joining a local WWII club, a Soviet paramilitary sports organization. She quickly proved to be a natural, earning the prestigious Voroshilov sharpshooter badge for her exceptional marksmanship. But for her, it was a hobby, a sport. Her future was meant to be in a classroom, not in a trench. That future was shattered on June 22, 1941, when the roar of German panzers and the scream of Stuka dive bombers announced the beginning of Operation Barbarossa. As the Wehrmacht smashed across the border, Lyudmila was among the first in line at the recruitment office in Odessa, determined to volunteer for the infantry. The male recruitment officer took one look at her and scoffed. He tried to push her towards nursing, telling her, "We need girls to be picking flowers, not holding rifles." Lyudmila was incensed. She refused to be dismissed. She pulled out her sharpshooter badge and her marksmanship certificates, demanding a chance to prove her skill. Lyudmila was thrown directly into the inferno. Her first taste of combat came during the desperate defense of Odessa, where she faced a baptism by fire that would forge her into a hardened killer. The psychological shock of her first kill was immense, but in the brutal calculus of the Eastern Front, there was no time for hesitation. She quickly learned the grim art of the sniper, the agonizing, motionless waits in no man's land, the mastery of camouflage, the cold, patient observation, and the single, perfect shot. During the 2.5 months of fighting at Odessa, she recorded an incredible 187 confirmed kills, but this was just a prelude. When Odessa finally fell, her unit was evacuated by sea to the fortress city of Sevastopol in the Crimea. It was here, during the city's epic 250-day siege, that her legend would be forged in blood and steel. The fighting in Sevastopol was a meat grinder, a brutal, street-by-street battle fought in a landscape of shattered concrete and twisted metal. For a sniper, it was the perfect hunting ground. From the ruins of factories and apartment buildings, Lyudmila waged her private war. She became a master of psychological warfare, patiently dueling German snipers for days on end in a lethal chess match where a single mistake meant death. She learned to anticipate their movements, to read their habits, to lure them into a fatal error. Her reputation grew on both sides of the front. To her own people, she was a national hero, her kill count celebrated in Soviet newspapers. To the German and Romanian soldiers she hunted, she became a terrifying, almost mythical figure, a ghost in the ruins who dealt death from afar. They gave her a name born of their fear, Lady Death. Her primary targets were officers, artillery spotters, and most importantly, other snipers. She recorded 36 confirmed sniper-on-sniper kills, a staggering number that represented the elimination of Germany's own elite hunters. By the time her combat career came to an end, her official tally stood at 309 confirmed kills, making her, without a doubt, the most successful and most deadly female sniper in human history. In June of 1942, as the siege of Sevastopol reached its brutal climax, Lyudmila's luck finally ran out. She was struck in the face by shrapnel from a German mortar shell, a wound that ended her combat career. By this time, her fame had spread all the way to Moscow. The Soviet High Command deemed her a living legend, a symbol of resistance too valuable to lose in the inevitable fall of the city. As one of the last ships to leave the doomed fortress, she was evacuated by submarine, a gut-wrenching departure that forced her to leave thousands of her comrades behind, to be killed or captured. But the Kremlin had a new, unexpected mission for their deadliest sniper. The Soviet Union was desperate for the Western Allies to open a second front in France to relieve the immense pressure on the Eastern Front. To make their case, they decided to send a delegation to the United States, Canada, and Great Britain. And to put a human face on their immense suffering and resolve, they chose Lyudmila Pavlichenko. In late 1942, the 26-year-old history student, with 309 kills to her name, was plucked from the ruins of Sevastopol and sent on a diplomatic tour of America. The culture clash was immediate and jarring. The American press, unused to a female combat hero, treated her not as a soldier, but as a curiosity. They asked her frivolous questions about whether she wore makeup at the front, about the length of her skirt, and about her lack of fashion sense. Lyudmila, a woman who had spent a year staring death in the face, was appalled and infuriated by what she saw as the naive, patronizing questions of a nation that did not yet understand the brutal reality of total war. Her frustration finally boiled over during a speech she gave to a large crowd in Chicago. Looking out at the well-dressed, well-fed men in the audience, she put aside her prepared remarks and spoke from the heart, her voice ringing with the cold, hard anger of the front lines. "Gentlemen," she declared, "I am 25 years old, and I have killed 309 fascist occupants by now. Don't you feel, gentlemen, that you have been hiding behind my back for too long?" Her words hit the crowd like a physical blow, a stunning rebuke that shamed them with the brutal truth. The moment was a turning point. The patronizing questions stopped. America began to see her not as a novelty, but as a warrior. During her tour, she became the first Soviet citizen ever to be welcomed at the White House by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, and she formed a close, unlikely, and lifelong friendship with the First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt, who saw in the young sniper a kindred spirit of strength and determination. After her successful tour of the West, Lyudmila Pavlichenko returned to the Soviet Union not as a frontline soldier, but as a living legend and a national hero. Promoted to the rank of major, she spent the rest of the war as a sniper instructor, passing on the deadly skills she had perfected in the ruins of Odessa and Sevastopol to a new generation of Red Army sharpshooters. She never returned to combat. Her fame and the symbolic power of her survival had made her too precious to risk. When the war finally ended, she completed her history degree at Kyiv University, the one she had abandoned in 1941, and began a new career as a historian and a respected member of the Soviet Committee for War Veterans. But the quiet life of a scholar could never fully erase the memories of the hunter. For the rest of her life, she was haunted by the faces of the men she had killed and the comrades she had lost. Her post-war years were a struggle against depression, post-traumatic stress, and the immense isolating weight of her own legend. She had been a student, a soldier, a hunter, a hero, and a diplomat, a woman who had lived a dozen lives before the age of 30. When Lyudmila Pavlichenko died in 1974, at the age of just 58, she was laid to rest as one of the great heroes of the Great Patriotic War. Her legacy is a complex and powerful one. She remains, without a doubt, the most successful and most lethal female sniper in human history. But more than that, she is a profound symbol of a brutal era. She was an ordinary student who, when faced with the invasion of her homeland, refused to be a victim, demanded a rifle, and transformed herself into a weapon of war. Her story is a stark reminder of the realities of total war, where the lines between civilian and soldier, man and woman, student and killer can be erased in the blink of an eye. She was a quiet intellectual who became a deadly predator, a young woman who earned the terrifying nickname Lady Death and the undying respect of a nation.